Lovely to have you here with us on another Friday for the ABOO lunchtime learning session. I hope you're all well and you've all had a great week. And as I say, welcome to our ABOO lunchtime learning session today. And today we're very lucky because we have Rebecca Robertson, who has initials that say CeMAP DipFA. But no, Rebecca's an award-winning author, TEDx speaker, podcast host, and she's an independent financial advisor who really focuses on helping women in business to get the confidence to plan their financial future and take control of their finances, which is what we all need. And she's the Times's most vouched for advisor, so we can't go wrong with that. Thank you so much for being here, Rebecca.
Thanks for having me. I always love doing these. So
no, it's really great. Really great to have you. And I'm going to hand over to you because I know you've got some slides to share. And I'll just say that if you've got questions, I mean, do put them in the comments. I'll try and make notes of them. But we'll let Rebecca go through what she's got to say. So she'll hopefully answer a lot of your questions anyway. And then we'll ask any other questions at the end.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. If anyone's got any questions at all, then please just jump in, because it might feel really random to you, but they often aren't. They're very related, whatever subjects I'm coming up with. So just pop a question and then we come back to it at the end. And the reason I don't do that throughout the presentation is it can just send me down a bit of a rabbit hole. So I'd like to try and keep on time and make sure we get all the content and help you today. So today my purpose is to basically help you in any way when it means to move forward with your finances. So some people, when it comes to their money, it can be a real mental block. And some people are super, super confident. So we're going to be touching on some different areas. There should be a little bit for everybody. I'm just going to try and attempt to share my screen, which I always find quite amusing because I've got double screens, and sometimes it shares it amazingly well. And then I press the buttons to do it in PowerPoint, like the presentation style. And then it ends up sharing the presentation on another screen, which is what it's done right now. So if I'm currently sharing, and I think you'll see, I'm just going to try and drag this presentation back over to the right place because
I think I can see your screen.
Can you?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to try one more thing. So I want to share the slides rather than all the presentation. Absolutely. So but I don't know if it's going to do it. So I might just try one more thing, and I'm going to try a new share and do it this way. This should work. So you should just see one screen now.
Perfect.
Brilliant. Okay, great. Sometimes it does test me. So today we're going to be talking about 10 ways to accelerate your wealth, and I'm not going to be actually going through it. There would be more than 10 things, but the 10 ways piece actually comes from my book called The 10 Ways to Accelerate Your Wealth. I can't cover everything in those 10 ways within that content because there's I'll be honest, there's so much in there, but there'll be more than 10 things we're covering today. I'm taking about 4, 5, 6 sort of concepts within that I'm sharing with you today, just if anyone is actually counting. So I'm just going to go on to the next slide, and I'm going to skip past. There's a little bit about me there, but we've already covered that. You've mentioned that, Lucy, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I will say I've got 22 years in financial services, so if anyone has any questions, then my suggestion is you use this time wisely and do ask away. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to talk about today is the ability to discipline yourself to delay gratification in the short term in order to enjoy greater rewards in the long term is indispensable prerequisite for success. That's Brian Tracy. So it's a great, great quote that I really like. Now, why do I share this with you today? Because quite often financial planning, money management, wealth creation, you are having to delay gratification in some way in that immediate short term for a greater reward in the long term. Now, we understand that as business owners, sometimes better when it comes to, for example, investing in a business or creating a marketing asset, because you're not necessarily getting an instant gratification for it. You're not getting even a short-term return for it, but you know that over time, that if you've tested the market and your return of investment will be better in that long term. So we understand that concept. But when it comes to other things that we consider in our business or in our personal life, we quite often don't. And I was talking to an amazing lady from my podcast yesterday about, and I'm not going to head too heavy into this, but I just found it really relevant and interesting, where she talks about basically the traumas that we've had as children are basically creating the future decisions that we're making. So her example was getting into a lot of debt, and she was making certain financial decisions and money decisions which were at the time giving her such gratification. So she was buying certain things, doing certain things, and it gave her an immense, adrenaline rush. But when it actually came to not making those kind of decisions, she found it really, really difficult for many reasons. And often with people, there are underlying habits and things that we are doing that we may be aware of, or we might not be quite aware of. By looking at those habits and decisions that we're making, we have to ask ourselves, do we really need this thing immediately? Is there something here that we need to look at, address, come to terms with? And our money mindset is a big, broad term. Everyone talks about money mindset. But it's really looking at, is there something that needs to be worked on personally that is affecting my business? It's affecting the decisions that I'm making. It's affecting how I'm maybe not making decisions, or I am making decisions. Am I spending in the wrong ways? And then once you start to look at that a little bit closer and you start to become aware of them, you can start to make shifts. And the principle is that you can basically, the more disciplined you are to delay self-gratification in order to create a longer term reward, is one of the parts of financial success. And that I wanted to bring that up today. Now, I've got horses and my daughter rides, so I do have a real belief that we have to have a balance with life, that we shouldn't be so frugal that we can't have a life, and that we do need to not necessarily live for today, but live for part of today and think of tomorrow and think about the future. So my question for you here are, what decisions are you currently making that you are either delaying making a decision and you need to, which is something that will help you long term, or what decisions or things are you doing right now which are bringing you great joy, but that they're not really creating that longer term future goal? And is it something that you really need? Is it something that you're reacting to because you're not feeling confident in yourself, or there's something underlying going on? And quite often our mindset around money is one of the biggest attributes, and that's male and female, when it comes to wealth creation and money management. So if anyone's got any thoughts, feelings on that, anyone on the replay that's listening back to this, I'd love to hear if any of that resonates with you, and if there's something that is coming up for you, then if you don't want to share it in the comments, you're welcome to private message me, and welcome to have a chat. And if I can point anyone in the right direction of support and help, then there may even be somebody in this group that can actually help you with something like that. I'm not you might need a therapist, you might need a coach of some description, and that especially the trauma side, you do need to speak to a real specialist in that area. Okay, now this comment, this particular quote from Jin Rohn is a little bit controversial, and I'll talk through why and my thoughts on that. The rich invest their money and spend what is left, and the poor spend their money and invest what is left. So now, I don't like to talk in terms of rich and poor. One, because I feel that it's not an acceptable way to put people into boxes, or put people into certain camps, because wealth, the greatest wealth is your health, and I know people that have a lot of money and they're equally as miserable for those that are struggling month to month. So being rich or being poor is not a fair characteristic to put people into. But what I like about the principle of this quote is what we're encouraged to, when you come from a certain upbringing, much like myself. I was brought up by a single parent in a council house, and I had, you know, a roof over my head, I had clothes on my back, I had a warm belly with food in it. I didn't have a overly traumatic upbringing, but we certainly didn't talk about investing. We talked about spending money, and we, like I talked in the podcast yesterday, we talked a lot about borrowing money and possibly getting into debt. Whereas when you come from a more of a stronger financial background, that doesn't mean that you don't come with any trauma or you don't come with any money issues or baggage at all. In fact, that they could be just as equally, for different reasons, as heavy. But what quite often is the case is that there is more education around money, and there is more slightly less debt. And there is a more of a situation of investing and looking for returns in money. So regardless of your status, of however you feel about what your status might be, the principle is that we want to look at our money and think about, we want to invest what we have, and set aside the correct amount that is going to create our wealth goal long term, and start creating some assets that have a return of investment, and then spend what's left, rather than the other way around. So the question here is, are you putting a amount of money aside to start thinking about what that future might look like? Are you investing at all? Or are you just spending everything? Now, for some people right now, there's a very difficult economy right now. You may not be in a position to even consider investing, but even if it was £10 a month, and you started somewhere, then look at your spending. How can you cut that back, and where could you start making some investments? Okay, now I love this slide because for some people that are feeling maybe a little bit sticky around this subject, when we talk about personal development in any context, there is a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So if any of these things that are coming up for you feel uncomfortable, or that people that may be feeling really sticky around this subject wouldn't actually even be here, they won't be listening to this. So if you are, congratulations and well done. Is that the fixed mindset is avoiding challenges, they're giving up easily, they're seeing it as a bit pointless, they're sort of not looking at any of the feedback, and they're feeling a little bit threatened by others. Certainly you'll be triggered by other people with money. You might be triggered by me, for example, like that, but that's not my fault. That's the way that you're viewing, the filter that you have on what you're hearing and what you're seeing. The growth mindset would embrace the challenges. They will persist if there's setbacks. They will see efforts as a path to mastery, to master this whole money thing, this whole wealth thing. They learn from criticism, and they feel lessons and inspiration from the success of others. Now, so I'd just like to put that out there for anybody that's sort of feeling, God, this feels a little bit of a stretch. Then think about how you're feeling. What things are you avoiding? What things are you giving up easily? Are you hiding bank statements in the drawer? Are you not looking at your online statements? Are you seeing things online and being terribly triggered by things? If so, there's some real telltale signs that there is some definite work to be done around shifting some of those mindsets. And the first thing is to become conscious of them, which is why I bring it up. Now, I'm going to move as naturally as I can from this heavy mindset piece into talking more about cash flow. So I'm going to be talking about several different subjects today, and the next one we're going to move into is talking about your allocation. So I mentioned previously that it's good to not spend everything and then invest a little bit that's left. It's actually to start investing first. Now, for some people, we want to take a bit of a back step from that. And what I encourage people to do is to have a look at their cash flow allocation. So where your energy flows, your money goes. Where you set the intention is where the money will sit. So I had a client recently this week, they earned between them somewhere like almost double six figures, and with bonuses as well. And they still find at the end of the month, they don't know where their money's gone. So I'm talking like 20 odd grand a month, and they still go, oh, I'm not sure where the money's going. There's some left over, but I'm not sure if we've got enough for this or for that. What have we set aside? So in their example, what I've given them the challenge to do is to give their money each month the job. So it shouldn't just sit there accumulating, it should have a job, because then what they do is they spend it all and then it's fast and famine, which is what naturally happens in a lot of people's businesses as well. We don't always have enough set aside, and we're entrepreneurial in our mindset, so we're hopeful for the future. And especially if you come from an abundance mindset around gratitude, for example, then you always think you're positive around what's around the corner. But the problem you can have with that is a lot of fast and famine. So my sensible head kicks in, because I'm very much an entrepreneurial mindset. I think under Denise Duffel-Thomas, I'm more of a maverick profile, anyone that's into that kind of thing. However, my sensible head kicks in, and I have like a base point of what's a safe level to have access to. So if I did have a couple of months of low cash flow, it's okay, things can be consistent. And that's what's key in business. We know this from marketing, from sales, for anything, and the same applies when it comes to our figures. Consistency is key. So as a typical personal finances, we would look at 50% going on necessities, mortgage, rent, gas, electric, which obviously gas and electric has massively increased, general expenses, petrol, etc. And then 50%, that may have gone up now just at the moment, maybe that's closer to 60% for some people. And then the rest of it would be split into certain categories. Now, you don't have to use these verbatim, these are just ideas. For some people, they might give 10% to charity, they might have 10% play, which might be spas, restaurants, meals out, holidays, whatever that might look like for you. 10% on education, that might be education for your children, or it might be courses or programs. And then there's 10% in long-term savings, which could be saving for a car or just general savings, not backup savings, emergency money. And then 10% financial freedom. So that would be for the longer term, more than 5-year goals. And for some of you, that might be pensions as an example of a pot. And so therefore, if you're a business owner and you're a limited company business owner, obviously that 10% actually might be gross. It might be coming out of your gross, so coming from the limited company, which is more tax efficient because it reduces corporation tax. So basically, look at where your money is going. I don't believe in budget planning in the conventional sense of like counting every penny that's going to a gas and electric, although that's handy at the moment. It's also looking at your other spending. So, you know, for example, me with my horses, I have a budget each month of what I allocate to the horses, because it's so easy for me to go, oh, but I just need this and I just need that, and my daughter wants to do that. I have to sort of set a budget for things, because that allows me then to do other things with it. So what is your pot allocation? What have you been doing over the last 3-6 months? And what would you like it to look like? What shifts do you need to make to think about that longer term future? Okay, this is a really important question. What is an asset? So an asset is an item of property owned by a person or a company, regarded as having value and able to meet its debts, commitments, or legacies. Now, the reason I bring this up is because, to me, a lot of people talk about assets in marketing, and this is no offense to marketing people meant. However, the sense is that a marketing is an asset. That is only true in the truest sense of the word if that particular asset of some kind, it could be a website, a free download, a book, that it is basically able to meet its legacies and commitments and debts. Now, the most obvious one in the UK for this is our residential home, the houses that we live in. So we spend a lot of time building ourselves up to a certain point in the property ladder, making the house nice and making it comfortable for us. And then a lot of the culture in the UK is you get to that point and actually you should clear the mortgage off as quickly as possible and be mortgage free as quickly as possible. What we're not taught is actually, is that the best thing to do? So one of the biggest questions I have for clients that are approaching us wanting one-to-one consultations or just chats around stuff is, I've got this lump sum, should I clear my mortgage? And not always, but often, depending on the personal circumstances, when I work out calculations on investing or clearing, in the current market, even with inflation quite high, in the current market, it is still better to invest and allow that money to grow. So a residential home, although it feels like an asset, isn't. okay, it's better than renting, and it does keep a roof over your head. And from a financial planning perspective, I'd also like all my clients to have a roof over their head in retirement to have security. But all eggs shouldn't be put in that basket. So all effort is gone to getting a bigger house with a bigger mortgage to then clear that mortgage down, because actually it's only an asset once you sell it. And 9 times out of people don't actually sell it at retirement or in retirement, because they've spent last 20, 30 years having a lovely home, and the last thing they want to do is then move. Who wants to move at the best of times, let alone at a time of real change and slowdown? So the questions I'd ask you is, do you have any assets, and how are you treating them? What assets could you create in your business or personally to create better financial security? So there's a little question I'm just going to leave there for you. Okay, the next section I'm going to be talking about is financial milestones. So along the bottom here, you can see the age, and along the top, you can see the income. And you can see that it dips down, this red line of income dips down when you're in your 10 and 20s, especially if you're in education. But it might, I work at 16, so I was earning at 16. And we've got secondary school, and then we've got having a family. So you can see the income starts to scoop right up, and the highest point is around between sort of 40 and 50 years old, when we're at our highest income potential. Obviously, if you're a self-employed or a business owner, that's unlimited, depending on your circumstances, obviously. For example, myself, I've got a 5-year-old. When he was really little, I only had a certain amount of childcare. There's only so many hours I could work comfortably without reaching burnout. So at that point, my income was a little bit less, and now it's more because he's in school full time. Now you can see here that you've got protection planning, investment planning, tax planning, and then early and retirement planning. So a lot of those things start to happen in your late 20s, early 30s, and going up to sort of your late 40s, early 50s, where you start thinking about some of these things. So protection planning is often that you've got a mortgage, you're going to protect the mortgage. Investment planning, start thinking about the retirement plans, investment plans, putting some money aside, because the longer that you can have that money invested, the longer you're not leaving it too late. And I spoke to a client this week who is 64, and we've got a 6-year plan for her to retire at 70. So it's never too late. Like people that are in their 50s or 40s never think that it is too late. You're better off starting somewhere than not starting at all. And as your wealth starts to, as your income starts to increase, you then have to think about tax planning and retirement planning that bit later on. So where are you in that scale? If you take a real step back from your financials, where are you on that scale? What is your next step? And what step after that do you need to start thinking about and considering? Okay. So vision without action is a daydream, and action without vision is a nightmare. It's really key when it comes to your finances that you're really clear to yourself about what the actual outcome is that you want. Because if I turn around and said to you as a financial advisor, well, to achieve retirement at X age, it means you need to start doing Y, and it could mean that you then need to stop doing certain things. You have to then consider, well, is the goal that I'm looking for that much more important than whatever it is you're having to stop? So it's being really clear on what it is that you want from life and where you want to be heading, where you want the outcome to be. And therefore, by having that vision and then taking the right actions for that vision is step by step. So many people get back into that fixed mindset where it feels too heavy, too much, or they might have had some past traumas that's stopping them from taking action, and then therefore the action just nothing happens. And I speak to clients who are much older than myself, and they just wish they'd met me sooner or taken action sooner. That's all they ever say. And then they live in this beating themselves up of not taking action sooner. So if there's one thing that you get from today, the one thing I'd love you to do is to take one action, one thing that you know or you feel you need to do. Either you already knew it or you've maybe got it from today, from something I've mentioned, and give yourself the challenge to have it actioned or looked at or starting a process by Monday morning, and put a note in your diary to remind yourself on Monday morning, because no one's going to do this for you. No one's going to go, hey, you didn't do that thing. No one's, you know, even a financial advisor I can't make somebody pick up the phone and ring their pension company or anything like that. There's lots that we can do, but at the end of the day, the client still needs to engage in the process. So what action could you take that your future self will thank you for? This is a bit of a vision for me, and I thought I would just share this before I move on to the next section. So something for me I'd love to do in the next few years is I'd love to take a 3-month holiday from my business without the children. We'll take the holiday this is without the children. I wouldn't be able to have a 3-month holiday for my children. That would be crazy. But I'd love to go. This is in America, and it's horseback riding across America, and I would love to do something like that. And that's one of my big drives. But it's great to have the vision, but what plans do we need to put in place to make these things happen? Okay, I'm just going to share something with you today, which is a couple of slides I've got a planner. So I've mentioned my book, but I've also got a planner, and I put this together because I basically wanted something for people to practically use themselves. So it's basically your own way of making your own financial planner. Now, you don't need to buy this book on Amazon. You're more than welcome to, of course. You can just take a picture of this slide and do your own little drawing of it. Not to put myself out of business, but I'd rather you take action than anything stop you from moving forward. So this is called a year goal, and I call this the Bankometer. So failing to plan is planning to fail. So we always have to plan what it is we want to do. We have to look at our financials, if it's creating a savings goal for a holiday, if it's clearing debt before we do that kind of stuff, or doing a little bit of both, or it's starting an investment goal, or creating a savings pot to invest at some point. Creating a habit, a small habit, and at first might be all that you're looking to, the first step for you to do. And so what you have to do is you have to look at, okay, well, how much is that holiday? How much debt have I got? What is the ultimate goal? What am I trying to achieve? And you need to have that sort of an amount and time scale in mind so you can plan towards it. So you write at the top what is in the box. It's got sort of a value, and you can put in the amount, whether it's clearing debt, investing, or saving. Could be all three. And you can put that on your fridge. If you have the planner, you can keep it in your book. You can put it on your desk or on your office wall. And just give yourself an action each month as to what that needs to meet that yearly goal. It might be at the end of this year. It might be between this tax year, from April to April, just coming up. Whatever it might be that you're thinking about, have that goal in mind. And then what you can do is you can start to challenge yourself. You know those thermometers, if you do like a charity thermometer, this is how this is supposed to work. So you can colour it in as you go, and you can start to see yourself working drip by drip, bit by bit towards that goal. So it's keeping yourself accountable, because again, no one's going to do that for you. So it's a little tool that I give to clients. It's a small little thing that actually, if it keeps you chipping away at things, can be a great help. And again, you can start anywhere. Even if it's £5 a month, you can still start. This is another slide from my planner, and this is what you have at the beginning of each month. So it's sort of stepping back into what I was just talking about around planning on a monthly basis. So at the beginning of each month, you basically have this page, and it gets you to think about what you want the month ahead to look like. So you can make a note of these questions. Of course, you're welcome to go and buy the planner, but you want to make a note of these questions and maybe put it in your own diary if you use one, or you could put it into Outlook as a monthly reminder. And you write at the top what the month is and how do I want to feel this month. So what is it that's your goal for this month? Do you want to feel confident? Do you want to feel light with your money? Do you want to feel empowered with your money? Do you want to, so how do you want to feel, like more in control, more secure? What does that look like for you? What do you want to receive this month? It doesn't have to be a financial amount. I want to receive, I don't know, you could put an amount in there. I'm trying to think of an example. It could be time from a friend, it's like some help on a marketing plan or a website page or an image that you want to do. You might want to help sort of it might not be a financial amount, it might be like a skill sharing thing where you help somebody else with something that they might need help with and you can help each other out. This month I want to give, so this is not for everybody, I'm not suggesting everyone has to give to charity, but you might say, okay, well, I'd like to give a little bit to Ukraine, for example, or another charity. And then my money affirmation for the month is, and I actually have a list on that link there. You can see rebeccarobertson.co.uk/wealth planner. There's a free training of this planner. So if you want to go and see more about the planner, or you just want some more ideas, you can download that for free on that page, and you just access me for 4 videos talking through this planner, and you can just use the notes if you want, and use the information I'm giving you. But on there is a download list of different affirmations. So I've got my favorites are listed on there. So that might be money comes to me freely. I don't have to work hard for my money. So it depends on what floats your boat and how you're thinking and feeling around your money, and going back to that mindset piece. Then we have this month I will earn. So this is going to be a value, and you put your income, and then you start to work out that pot, that cash flow money pots I spoke about. So my savings pot for the holiday will go from £500 to £600, and it's got a little example there for you, and you can then draw in those little pots, so you have a visual each month of where your money is each month. Okay, I've got some summary actions for you. So what's the goal? Short, medium and long term. So think about what you want right now, what you need for the future. That's a medium, 5 years, long term, 10 years plus. What insurances have you got, and what do you need? Are the things that you're paying for that you don't any longer need? And looking at your outgoings in general, and having a review of what you're paying for in your business and personal is really important. How much savings do you need to have in place to feel safe? And this is possibly in your business, or it could be personal. For some people that have limited companies, they sort of hold all their assets in that limited company, in which case your personal income backup needs to be in there. If not, you need to pay it yourself and save it in a separate personal account. But what would make you feel safe? Would it be 3 months outgoings for the business and 3 months personal outgoings for you personally that might sit in the business or in another personal account? But what would make you feel comfortable? And that needs to be your first ultimate goal, because where confidence and security comes, then more abundance and success follows that. Do you have a will in place? If so, is it up to date? Have you reviewed your pensions? Can you top up where they potentially could be topped up? Bear in mind, we're coming at the end of the tax year now, so you've got like a week. For those that are limited companies, at end of tax year, their business end of tax year is the same as the actual tax year. You have a week to top up those pensions before your so if you have an end of tax year that's to July, this is the same. You basically are allowed to put money into a pension up to a certain limit, which basically reduces your corporation tax. Once you tick into that new business tax year, that opportunity is gone. So you should speak to your accountants to clarify your position on that. You're welcome to message me, PM me if you have any questions about any of that. And I will answer any questions if anyone does have any today, if you have. Create a habit for investments. Start somewhere, and investments can be pensions as well. So an investment portfolio can have different tax wrappers, and a pension is one tax wrapper, and it has massive tax advantages, as well as ISAs, for example. What would make you feel calm and confident about your money and your savings? Because that's what needs to be your first focus. Is anything here that's jumping up and down, making you feel a little bit itchy, a little bit anxious? That is the thing to tackle first. You might have a long list from what I've discussed. Prioritize, write it all down by all means, but take one thing at a time. Do not try and do all of this at once. Whatever will make you feel calm and confident, run with that first. Those that haven't heard of the book Profit First, that is an amazing book around how to pay yourself more, which I haven't touched too much on today. But there's lots of podcasts on my podcast about that kind of thing, and obviously check out the book Profit First from, I can never pronounce his surname, so it's Mike. I'll just call him Mike. Great book. So this is my book. This is it doesn't come out great, this image on the bigger screen. It's better on the smaller one. But this is 10 ways to accelerate your wealth, and it's an Amazon bestseller. So thank you for Lucy for allowing me to share this today. I think I've currently got 9 5-star Amazon reviews on this, which is lovely. And I was bestseller in 9 categories, which was amazing. So there's lots in this book, and much more from what I've covered today, and much more. So that's my talk today. I hope that's been really helpful. I'm just going to stop sharing my slides and see if you have any questions, have any feedback, or have I scared everybody off?
No, that's been fantastic, Rebecca. Thank you so much. I found that fascinating and really useful and really insightful. So a couple of, one thing, could you tell us again what the link to the free download of your planner is? I think you said.
Yeah.
We put in the link
sure.
to it on Amazon, but what's the link?
Would you like me to type it in the chat box?
Yeah,
that
would be great.
Okay, so it's rebeccarobertson.co.uk /wealth planner. So if you go to rebeccarobertson.co.uk, you'll find it on there, and it's at the top, wealth planner. But I will type that in the comments so that you can copy.
Oh, that would be brilliant. Yeah, that would be perfect, Rebecca. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. And also we so everyone's saying well presented. Thank you. Sage advice was so helpful.
That's lovely.
Another comment is frugality comes naturally to me due to my background and possibly being working class and upbringing. And I was averse to frivolity, and that allowed me to be mortgage free by the age of 30. That's pretty impressive.
It's very impressive, and I take my hat off to anyone who can do it. But 99% of the population would struggle. And so in that example, when you put all your eggs in that one basket, then it's not now a case of, well, that spare income that you've got now for the next 20-30 years is to invest as much of that as possible. And for most people who can't be that frugal and that careful to clear it off all in one go, we might have childcare fees, for example, or crazy like me with horses. Then a balanced approach is that much more easier. So do a little bit of both. So clear a little bit of the mortgage off by all means, but invest a little bit as well. Don't if you can't be really frugal, and don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Right, that's right. So okay, that leads into another question that we've got. So someone has spent all their spare cash to date on home improvements and renovations. They have a small cottage next to their house that they rent out. They're buying some more land and hope to convert a barn on it. So
Amazing.
They're putting everything into property. And is that a wise choice? They've got no actual investments and wouldn't know where to start. So what's your feeling about that?
I love property, and a lot of women love property because it feels something that you can touch and you can feel and you can see it. And we get property in the UK that much better. Property is great because you can see the value of the property go up, usually, even with the recession in 2008. It was only 4 or 5 years, and then the property market did rebound, but you still had to wait for that to happen. In the meantime, as long as you've got a good tenant, you've got the income coming in. So again, that depends on the return of investment as to how big the mortgage is against the rent. So if you're doing that in her example, it sounds like it could be on her property already. She's already paying a mortgage potentially already. So when I talk about assets, a residential home, the only exception to that is if you do have a building that you rent out on that land, because it becomes an asset that is actually potentially getting rent for, that you're then helping towards to pay that mortgage. So your residential home then actually does become a more of a conventional asset. Or equally, if you can buy more land off the farm or off the back of the property or nearby. For a lot of people, they like to possibly think about building on that land. That's a very, very good way if you can find a good builder and you know what you're doing, because you're buying it at that much cheaper than what you would be, or say, buying a new build off plan from an actual developer. That would be, you'd pay more premium for it. So property is great for all of those reasons, but again, it's about doing it in a cautious way. So I know some people that have property portfolios and they buy, say, 6 or 7 properties in one town. Now, to me, when we're talking about portfolios and wealth management, and in the investment sense, it's very much about diversification. So if you've got all your eggs in one town, for example, let's just say that town, as an easy example, is mainly people that work in a coal or work at a certain pharmacy or a pharmaceutical company, and so most of your tenants are working at one particular university or something, and you've only got to have that university shut down or grant finishing or that industry changing. We see that with oil now, what's happened with Russia. You could see some sort of shift that you couldn't have foreseen, but you've got half your tenants basically lost their job.
Yeah.
So with property, that's the only thing you have to be quite cautious with, to ensure that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, and that you are diversifying. So in a investment portfolio, you can still have property, but they're property funds. So often then they're those large corporate companies that I mentioned that are building those big off-plan developments, or they own massive retail parks, for example. So you can still have the asset classification of property in an investment portfolio, and therefore it doesn't have so much risk as you buying one property in one town with all the money you've got, and you're reliant on one person, which is the tenant that's going to rent from it. So in the example that particular lady gave, I think it's a great idea, but siphon some of the revenue that you get from that into other investments to diversify.
That's really, really useful advice and really interesting. So yeah, diversification is something to bear in mind on whatever you're investing in.
Yeah, definitely. And the tax implications of having say, for example, you've got a property portfolio that's in a limited company or in personal name, it still falls under your personal name as an asset under inheritance tax. So unless you sell that portfolio and you pay capital gains tax, which will be quite some if you've had them for a while, and you have to pay the capital gains tax, it's still, either way, if you sell it or you don't, you will fall under your estate for inheritance tax. So you're thinking, oh, okay, well, my kids can have these properties. Well, actually, unless you've got more than a few, it's very likely that one or two or three would have to be sold to pay the 40% tax bill to the Crown. So a lot of landlords, they build their property portfolio up, and then they don't think about that until a little bit too later on the line.
Right. So so the response to that is great advice. And then any tips on what to invest in? Big question.
Oh, huge question. I did a podcast with Shane Blakeman, who is an investment manager at it's called U Asset Management, yesterday. It's coming out in the next week or so. So I'd say subscribe to my podcast, and I can give a much broader and better answer to that. Right. I can't give individual, regulated financial advice, because I'm basically then liable and you can sue me because I'm a regulated advisor.
Yeah, no,
so I'm very careful what information I give. But there's also a podcast I did back in February, which is available now, around starting to invest and how you shift from saving to investing and what that looks like as a process. And that's on another podcast. So I'd suggest go and check those out. And that will give you a better answer. For those that are really at the beginning and they just think, what is she talking about? And I don't understand any of it. I suggest you take, I don't know whether it's £10, £20, £30, whatever it might be, something that you can afford to lose, so a small amount, and go and buy a share in a company that you like and you trust and you respect. You can buy one share, you can buy two shares, whatever floats your boat. And just then monitor that company and monitor how that share price fluctuates. And it will just give you a really insightful understanding as to how the stock market works. What I do is slightly different, because I then use managers to do that for you, and you don't have to stress and worry about that. But sometimes for a lot of people, it's just such an unknown area. I like the idea, if you just go and buy one share in one company you really like and know, it will just start to help you understand how that whole economy works.
That's absolutely great advice. Thank you so much for that, Rebecca. We've got your wealth, free download to your wealth planner. Oh, yep. And Michaela's put Profit First, the book you mentioned, which indeed is a really good book and certainly helped me manage my business. Is brilliant. Mike Mikhailovich. That's in the comments too. But thank you so much. You've given us so much valuable information and insight, and just, you know, sort of just expertise here today.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Really,
and I'd love to hear from anyone in the comments. I will go and find them and look them from Facebook. If anyone's watching it there, or I don't know if it's going to go onto YouTube later, I might not see them there, but I'd love to know what actions people are going to take. There's your dogs.
Yes, I said it.
Yeah, you did say that was going to happen. And I'd love to hear what action people are going to take, just because by you writing it down, I know that you're 10 times more likely to actually take that action than thinking about it and not actually verbalizing or typing it out. So I'd love to hear from people what action they're going to take from today. Lucy's dogs are still barking, I think.
I'll just unmute myself anyway. They'll probably keep barking, but yes, no, Michaela says this has been wonderful. I need to go back and watch again. So thank you so much, Rebecca, and I'm sure there will be comments and questions, so thanks for offering to come back on that as well.
No problem. Fantastic. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Take care.
Thanks, and bye everybody.
Bye everybody.
Bye.